Hello and welcome to another video.
This video is sponsored by Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a monthly book service focused on promoting new and emerging authors. Every single month, they curate diverse new and early releases in various genres like thriller, romance, contemporary, and more. While the subscription is monthly, you can skip months if you don't feel like any titles interest you during any given month. The first book pick for December is People Like Her, followed by Millions, Watched by One. People Like Her is a wickedly smart suspense debut thriller about an ambitious influencer mom whose soaring success threatens her marriage, her morals, and her family's safety. Next, we have This Close to Okay, a novel about the life-changing weekend shared by two strangers, a therapist and a man she prevents from ending his life. This Close to Okay is a vibrant, powerful story about two strangers brought together by wild chance at the moment that they needed each other the most. The next book is The Office of Historical Corrections. In this, the author zooms in on particular moments and relationships in her characters' lives in a way that allows them to speak on larger issues of race, culture, and history. Ultimately, she provokes us to think about the truths of American history and about who gets to tell them and the cost of setting the record straight. The fourth book is The Wife Upstairs. A delicious twist on a Gothic classic, this story pairs Southern charm with atmospheric domestic suspense. The Wife Upstairs flips the script on a timeless tale of forbidden romance, ill-advised attraction, and a woman who just won't stay buried. In this vivid reimagining of Jane Eyre, which Mrs. Rochester will get her happy ending? The last and final book for December is Anna Holidays. Jam-packed with Yuletide cheer, an unforgettable cast of characters, and amazing humor, this swoon-worthy romance read will make you believe in the power of wishes and the magic of the holidays. Those are all 5 book options for the December choices. And this month, Book of the Month is doing their biggest deal yet. If you're interested in any of these books, you can use the code BOOKWISH to get your first book for only $5. You can also click on my link down below for more information and a link to Book of the Month's website.
So, some of you guys might notice that I have not made a wrap-up video since I think July, when I wrapped up my January through June reads.
What are you?
An idiot sandwich.
So you may not have noticed that my reading tastes have changed significantly because I was reading a lot of YA contemporary and a lot of fantasy last year, but this year it has definitely switched over to thrillers and romance for the majority. I do read fantasy a lot still, and I still read a lot of YA contemporaries because I just love them, but thrillers have really become the new thing for me. And so with that, I thought it would be really cool to do a sort of series, I guess, where I read, rank, and review all the books by specific authors. This isn't something that's like new. I know Elle from Lovely Reads 101 does this series. I think she calls hers the Binge-Worthy Author series. You should definitely check that out, especially if you like contemporaries, because I know she's done one on Morgan Matson and she has a lot more planned. So definitely check out Elle's channel for that. But this video specifically is going to be about thrillers, and that's what my series is probably going to be about, thrillers and romances. And I'm going to be starting with Riley Sager, who has become one of my favorite authors recently. I just love his works. I just love his writing. I love his thrillers. I have been wanting to do a sort of ranking thing for a while. So today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to be ranking and reviewing all of Riley Sager's books, which is only 4 books, so it's not as amazing as you think. I wanted to start small, you know, we all know how much of a mood reader I am, but I'm super excited because I could go on talking about Riley Sager for hours if I was left to it, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go right into the ranking of these books. Of course, I'm going to tell you which one my favorite is, and I'm going to tell you also what these books are about, but I'm going to try and keep it spoiler-free just in case you decide to read any of his books, which you definitely should because they're so good. Okay, anyways, let's get into the video. So currently, Riley Sager has 4 published books, and in order of publication, they are Final Girls, The Last Time I Lied, Lock Every Door, and Home Before Dark. And on the bottom of my ranking is Home Before Dark. This book follows our main character, Maggie, who has a lot of questions about her childhood because 25 years ago, or like around 20 something years ago, her parents bought this Victorian estate called Branbury Hall, and there are a lot of weird, ghostly things that were happening in that house. So Maggie and her family only spent about 3 weeks in the house before running away because they were essentially traumatized. And now in the present, Maggie has a lot of questions because her father has died, and she's trying to figure out what happened, because at the time all of this was happening, her dad decided to write a book where he was talking about all the horrific things that they experienced at Branbury Hall, and Maggie's like, all of this is fake. And so she moves into Branbury Hall in the present because she's trying to sell it, I think, and she's also trying to figure out what all these things her dad wrote were and whether they were true, because her memory is super hazy on the entire thing. And she's also at the same time trying to get answers from her mom, who is still alive but is keeping secrets from her. Yeah, that's basically the entire premise of the book before I go into any like spoilery type of vibes. I did not really enjoy this one that much because I felt like, first of all, the main character, Maggie, was extremely boring, and I didn't feel any sort of connection to her. Like, I don't really have to feel connections to characters in thriller novels because I'm just here to be entertained and I'm just here to be finding out the juicy plot twist, so I don't really care too much about the characters most of the time. But I just felt like Maggie's character was very boring for most of the book because the book is told from her perspective in the present and then her father's perspective in the past, so we really get to see what she's thinking and we really get to see what her father was thinking at the time. And I just found her father's perspective way more fleshed out, and he had more of a three-dimensional type of character, whereas Maggie was just very bland and you really didn't get to see anything juicy from her perspective. The entire time I was just kind of like, can we just find out what's going on here, because this is really dry. And I also think I might not be the type of person who enjoys haunted house type of stories, because while I did think that Riley did a really phenomenal job in some of the points of this book that were creepy and were weird and made me like, and a lot of the things that I thought would happen did not happen, and I was just like amazed at Riley Sager's ability to write, because when I read Home Before Dark, it was the second book that I had read by Riley Sager, and so I didn't really know that much about his writing, but I can definitely say he's the type of author who has you on your toes. Like, you think you know what's going on, but 9 out of 10 times you do not know what's going on, and Riley Sager just does such an amazing job with that. But this is still the last book on my list. It is number 4. I am so sorry to all the Haunted House, Home Before Dark fans, but this one was not it for me. Moving into the third book on my ranking, I am going to place Final Girls onto this spot. This book follows our main character Quincy, who 10 years ago was a victim of a horrific stabbing incident. She ends up being, I think, one of the 3 girls to survive this incident, and now she's in the present. She is a masterful baker. She has a business. She kind of has her life on track. But then one of the final girls from that incident ends up dying, and the police believe that she has committed suicide, but Quincy believes that this woman has been murdered. And so she's trying to figure out, oh my gosh, what happened? I've been trying to move on with my life, and now all of this is happening. What's going on? So Quincy is super confused, and her life ends up going upside down, basically, because another final girl who was one of the 3, I think it was 3 girls who survived, but the last girl who survived ends up showing up at her doorstep. I believe her name was Sam, and Sam is like, Quincy, it's me, Sam. What's going on? I heard blah, 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 blah. And Sam comes back into Quincy's life, and a lot of crazy things happen because Quincy starts believing she is not who she thinks she is, and a lot of questions are up in the air, and boy, oh boy, was I completely in there. I feel like if not for the next 2 books that I'm going to talk about, Final Girls would be probably higher on my list, but it just, compared to the other 2 books, it just didn't do it for me in that same way, which you'll understand later when I go into talking about the other 2 books. I feel like this book, the first half was amazing, phenomenal, wonderful, struggle. But then halfway through the book, it was really obvious kind of what was going on. I felt like Riley Sager could have done a lot more with this book. And again, it is his first book written under the Riley Sager name. I think I found out recently that Riley Sager has been writing before his name was Riley Sager because it's a pen name, I guess. But anyways, so because this was his first book, I was like, you know what? It's not that bad. But like I mentioned earlier, I come to thrillers to be entertained and to get some juicy plot twists. And the plot twists in this book were not juicy, but the writing was amazing and I still enjoyed it more than Home Before Dark, so it had to go above it, but below the other two books that I will talk about next. I just realized that once I say what number 2 is, you are all going to know what number 1 is. So I'm just gonna, take a moment to do a little bit of a drum roll, please, as we get into the second book on my ranking list. So drum roll, please. Anyway, so number 2 on my list is Lock Every Door. I was surprised at this because I definitely thought Lock Every Door would be my number 1 pick on this list, because when I read Lock Every Door, I think earlier this year, I was flabbergasted, okay? I know I was listening to this audiobook at work, and when the plot twist came, my mouth literally dropped, okay? This book follows our main character who is poor and she's broke and she's trying to figure out what to do with her life because things are not working out for her. And so she, I think, sees this ad, or she sees this job placement that is asking for an apartment sitter at this luxurious apartment building where like rich and famous people live. And our main character is like, okay, I really need the money, because I think they only wanted her to live there for like maybe a month or something, and they were going to give her that heavy dough, that cheddar cheese. She was going to be making some good money, and all she had to do was move in and follow some rules. Like, she couldn't have guests staying over, she couldn't do a lot of different things, which she kind of like made understandable in her own brain. She was like, okay, this is a place where rich celebrities live, people who are, public figures live here, so like it makes sense to not be able to invite people over. And I kind of agree with this. The logic in this book was so realistic in my opinion, especially the first half, because if you're somebody who really needs a lot of money and all you have to do is apartment sit at some creepy building, you might take it up if you're desperate enough, even if they're like, you can't have any people over, you can't do XYZ. Like, they even paid her in cash, I think, which was sketchy because it was a lot of money. Like, they were going to pay her in such a sketchy way. But homegirl was desperate. So she moves into this apartment and she starts figuring out that a lot of creepy things are happening, because at the apartment building she makes friends with this girl who ends up being a real detective. I forgot the girl's name. I think her name is Libby. I can't even remember her name, but that girl was the home skillet. She literally was the GOAT. I'm telling you, when I was reading this book, I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. There was so much happening. I can't even put it into words. But this is where another one of Riley Sager's heavy skills with writing comes into play, because Riley Sager is so good at making you think that you're reading something that you're not reading, because you really think that something crazy is going on for the entire time, and then you get to the plot twist and you're like, wait. And the plot twists in this book, chef's kiss, they were so good. And I know that I mentioned earlier that I'm not really a fan of haunted houses, and that's why I didn't really like Home Before Dark that much, but Lock Every Door is very different because it's kind of like a haunted vibe, but there's so much more to this book. Like, you got the haunted vibe, you got the really weird tenants, you have the apartment sitters who are also really weird and suspicious too. And so the entire time you're trying to figure out what's going on, why are these people going missing, what are these rich people doing. And man, if you're the kind of person who is always suspicious of rich people, if you're the type of person to be like, eat the rich, this is the kind of book that you need to read, because it is so good. And I also think this is a great thriller to start with because it's not really like scary, but at the same time it has really good characters. Like you will actually feel invested in the main character, in the side characters. I felt so invested in every single character in this book, even the tenants. I was like, what's happening here? Are they okay? Just so much was going on, and at the very end, the way this book is just so good. I don't even know what to say. It's just so good. But it wasn't as good as The Last Time I Lied, which is the number one book on my list. Okay, when I tell you, I thought The Last Time I Lied would maybe be like the third on my list or the second at best. But when I was reading this book, I was like, what? The Last Time I Lied follows our main character, Emma, who is an artist in the present. I don't know what it is about thriller novels and their main characters being artists, but I'm kind of digging it. Like, I really like that. But anyways, Emma, when she was a teenager, went to this camp called Camp Nightingale, and she was there with 3 other girls. I think the only girl who really stood out to me was Vivian, but I'm looking at the little description right now, and it was Vivian, Natalie, and Allison. So it was Emma and those 3 girls who were kind of like bunk buddies or staying in the same cabin. And when Emma was a teenager, she was friends with these girls, and they were at this camp, like I mentioned, but the 3 girls went missing and nobody ever found them again. And now in the future, Emma is dealing with a lot of, or in the present, Emma is dealing with a lot of guilt about where the 3 girls went and what happened to them. And she ends up running into the woman who owns the camp, who invites her to come back as a camp counselor or something to teach the kids how to paint. And Emma decides that she's going to go back because she wants to figure out what happened in the past, where those girls went, and she wants to kind of free herself of the guilt that she has felt all these years about what she did and the hand that she played into it and all of that, because she blames herself for everything that happened. Okay, this book, it does not sound better than the other books on this list, but it really is. Like, I don't even like camp settings in books, okay? But when I tell you that I was so invested in the tea, in the drama, like there's nothing juicier than a group of people at a camp that low-key hate each other, that are trying to like figure out who did what, when, and why. And that's kind of like the vibe I got from this book. It gave me like a thriller version of Total Drama Island. I don't know if that even makes any sense, but the tea in this one was heavy. Like throughout the book, Emma is trying to figure out what happened and why those girls went missing and why they were literally never found, like not even their bodies or anything. Like it's been years and this still hasn't been discovered, like what's going on here. And the entire time you're reading this book, you're kind of like, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense, like what's going on. Like you're trying so hard to put the pieces together, but it's so entertaining and you're just kind of like, that person's suspicious, that person's suspicious, and you're like, who's the imposter here? And that's exactly how I felt. And I was buddy reading this with one of my friends, and she was literally like, I don't trust this person, I don't trust that person, and that was the same way. But when I tell you that you could not have predicted this plot twist, literally the plot twists keep coming and coming and coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. I'm telling you, I was so shocked, flabbergasted. I couldn't even, what? I literally was like, are you kidding me? That, what? And as soon as I finished this, I was like, this is definitely going to be my number 1 book. And it's so crazy that I had such low expectations for this book because I was like, okay, I'm just trying to read it to have finished all of Riley's books so I can kind of like put them against each other. But Mr. Sager did not disappoint, okay? He gave us tea upon tea upon tea. Like, if you're the type of person who likes to be entertained and you like juicy plot twists, then you need to read this book. With thrillers, you kind of have to be careful with the content because some of them can be super gory, some of the themes can be traumatic. So I would definitely say with Riley's books and with thrillers in general, look up the trigger warnings for them and try to inform yourself. But I'm telling you, this book was just the bomb. Like, it was so good, and so it makes #1. But in case you needed a wrap up of my rankings, at the bottom we had Home Before Dark, then we had Final Girls, then we had Lock Every Door. At #1 we had The Last Time I Lied. And I'm so excited because Riley Sager is coming out with another book in 2021, and I cannot wait because he is definitely an auto read author for me. I just love his works. I cannot stop talking about how much I love his books. So I hope it does not disappoint, but I will still have low expectations, as I often do with thrillers. But I will say, if you have not read any Riley Sager books, you definitely should consider it, because chef's kiss. And with that, we have come to the end of the video. So if you watch till the end of this video, leave me a rainbow emoji or say rainbow, because even though we are talking about thrillers, let's have the comment section looking a little bit cute, you know?
Also, thank you so much again to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video.
I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.